Okay, so we've got the very first screencast of the course here, and this is 5.1.1. And these first few screencasts in Chapter 5 will be centered on reviewing and recalling some rules related to proportions. And I always like to remember proportions as basically being relationships. So for instance, in the very top here, I've got A, this is how I read it. A relates to B the same way that 3 relates to 4. And I think about it in lengths or height. So I've drawn some, a 4 length and a 3 length. And remember that fractions and proportions do not require, for instance, that A be 3 and B be 4. It's just that A and B relate that way. So, of course, we've got two other lengths down here in the red. These two are 6 and 8 inches, or not inches, but in units, and they still relate in a 3 to 4 relationship, right? We think about almost kind of, if I draw some of these pen, right? Remember that 6/8 turns itself into 3/4 because both top and bottom are divisible by 2. Another thing that I've done at the bottom here is put in a little slider, and what you'll notice is that when A is 1, we have let's see, when A is 1, the lengths are 3 and 4, but if I change the multiplier, right, all of these lengths continue to be 3 to 4. There's 9 to 12, right? There was 6 to 8. 6 to 8 is in here. There it is, right? So these lengths all relate in a 3 to 4 ratio. Pretty important to remember that. And remember that when you have, let's see if I can get rid of some of these things on the left here. When you have a 3 to 4 ratio like this, you're allowed to cross multiply. So it might be useful to say, for instance, that 3 times B is equal to 4 times A, let's say. It might be helpful to say that A is 3B over 4, and remember that that's just really 3/4 of B, which should make sense, that A is 3/4 of the length of B. So for instance, 6 is 3/4 of 8. Over here on the right, we've got a couple of things pretty important to highlight, that we have this thing called means and extremes. And so when we have, here's the example here also. It is a fact that 2/3 is equal to 6/9, and you need to make sure that you remind yourself of that. And again, remember that cross multiplying works here. 2 times 9 still is 3 times 6. Right? They both are 18. Oops. Right? And that's why these two things are the same. In this case, also, we have this idea called means and extremes. 2 and 9 are considered the extremes, if you want to think about the extreme, the smallest and the largest, and that 3 and 6 are the means in the middle. And we'll talk more about geometric means and arithmetic means in the coming screencasts. Okay, so there we go. 5.1.1, looking back at proportions and how they work.